Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Justine, and I'm a third-year rising medical student at Wake Forest University School of Medicine. And I want to welcome you all to tonight's virtual town hall about closing the interview seats and waitlists and reapplying. So while this year's med school application cycle is well underway, it's a very exciting time for applicants, but also can be very anxiety-provoking and challenging. Speaking from firsthand experience, too often applicants receive misinformation from misleading sources. And while the application process is already long and challenging enough as it is, getting honest and accurate information shouldn't be a struggle. So before we begin tonight's session, I want to briefly talk about YPI, which is otherwise known as the Young Physicians Initiative. Our organization is composed of motivated medical students who are interested in making a career in medicine more accessible and equitable. Here at YPI's Pre-Med Portal, we achieve this mission by hosting webinars every few months with the help of gracious admissions deans and directors from across the country, some of which we will speak to tonight. As the people who make admissions decisions, they will be helping to filter out the fiction and instead provide facts and reliable information. In just a second, I will be introducing our panel of medical school admissions faculty who will be answering both yours and our questions in a live Q&A. If at any point you guys have questions for our panelists, please post them in the comments section. And just a few pointers about those questions. First, the shorter the better. The program won't let us display super long questions, so please keep them as concise as possible. Two, if you have more than one question, feel free to make multiple comments. You can ask really as much as you would like. And third, we usually receive more questions than we can answer. So we try to select the questions that the most viewers can benefit from. So that being said, if you have a question highly specific to your situation, please just consider how you could rephrase it so that it'll be more applicable to other viewers as well. And finally, we really appreciate your feedback. And so at the end, please take some time to fill out our very brief survey. A QR code will populate, so please have your phones ready to scan it and give us some feedback. That is it for my little intro spiel. So now we're going to turn to our panel, and I'm going to introduce who we have with us tonight. So first off, we have Mr. Christian Essman. He is the Senior Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at Case Western School of Medicine.
Good evening, everybody. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Do I give my intro now or after you introduce our second guest?
You can go ahead and give your intro right now.
Okay. Like. All right. Hey, nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm flattered to be invited. Like Justine said, my name is Christian Essman. And in my role at Case Western, I kind of manage all the day-to-day operations and enrollment management and financial aid for our MD programs. And I interview candidates, I review files, I sit on all of our admissions committees and subcommittees. I see everything from soup to nuts, from recruiting fairs to white coat ceremonies and graduations. So I kind of have a pretty good handle on the things that are coming your way. And I'm at Case Western, which is in Reserve University School of Medicine, which is in Cleveland, Ohio, tropical Cleveland, Ohio, by the way. It was 62 degrees here today. So, and we're a private medical school. We've been there for a long time, for over 175 years. We have 3 pathways to an MD at our school, and including a 4-year traditional degree, a 5-year degree that is research focused, and then an MD PhD or medical scientist training program. So we're partnered with 4 outstanding, very large hospital systems, and we're a very research rich environment as the largest biomedical research institution in the state of Ohio. So there's a little thumbnail sketch about my school. So I will step aside and say hello to our other friend.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Next, we have Dr. Christine Hay, who is the MD Associate Dean of Admissions at the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry.
Good evening. It's my very great pleasure to be here today. As Justine said, I am the Associate Dean for Admissions for the medical school at the University of Rochester, and that is Rochester in New York State. So we are located in upstate New York, also a private institution. And we're actually the 5th largest employer in the state of New York. So it is a very large medical center, also very research focused, also very clinically focused, and we have the great pleasure and privilege of taking care of patients in the city of Rochester, the suburbs of Rochester, and a very large portion of upstate New York. And that means that our students get to see urban patients, suburban patients, and also rural patients. And I think that is something that is a very big advantage for our location. So I'm very, very pleased to be here tonight. Very happy to answer any questions. Just like Mr. Essman, I chair the admissions committee and basically see applicants from the time they first apply to the time they graduate from medical school, which is a very exciting thing to be able to do.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Alrighty. So now that we have gotten to know our admissions panel a bit tonight, it's time to shift over to our live Q&A. So in just a second, our first question is going to populate on the bottom of the screen. Alrighty, our first question is, what advice do you have for applicants who have not yet received an acceptance but are on one or more wait lists? Dr. Hay, would you like to give us your input?
Absolutely. So definitely stay on the wait list. If you have a school that you're particularly interested in and they have not yet finished giving out their acceptances, then by all means feel free to write a letter of intent or interest. Those are definitely things that we look at. I would also, though, start to look at your application and maybe try and figure out what it was that might have prevented you from getting an acceptance this year. And work on that as soon as you possibly can. You don't have much time before the next cycle. You might want to consider whether you actually want to apply the next cycle or spend the next year looking at your application and figuring out where in that application you might have some deficiencies so that you can reapply with an incredibly strong application.
Great, thank you. Christian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say I agree with Dr. Hay. And another thing I would add to that is don't give up hope yet. It's still kind of early. Despite this, if you started applying last summer, it's like, this has been going on forever. And I still don't have like a definitive answer yet, but I'm on wait list. In the med school admissions side, things don't really start kicking up for us. Like the dust doesn't start kicking up for us on wait lists until the end of April. The decision day for students holding acceptances is May 1st this year. And so we're kind of waiting, like Dr. Hay's waiting, we're waiting, all med schools are kind of waiting for our acceptance numbers to kind of come in. And we just kind of see, all right, did we go below our target? Are we at our target or are we above our target? And if we happen to go below our target, that's when we're going on the wait list. So that's when things can start kind of really kicking up. So, and I've seen sometimes applicants over the years they have no acceptances, they're on wait lists, and all of a sudden it rains, it pours. They get a phone call from Rochester, then another day later they get a phone call from Case Western, and then from Chicago and WashU, and Illinois. Like the phone starts ringing, and sometimes it's an embarrassment of riches, but they've been waiting so long. But at that point, it's like, who cares? Like now you're getting all these acceptance offers, and that's not an exaggeration. Like that has happened. So I know it's been long, but and like Dr. Hay said, if schools accept letters of intent or letters of interest, then it wouldn't hurt to start drafting something up, in the next few weeks here or so.
Alrighty, thank you both. Alrighty, for our next question. Okay, this one's slightly different. What advice do you have for applicants who have not yet received an acceptance or a waitlist position? I think you guys touched on this a bit previously, but if you have anything to add, either of you.
Look to see how late acceptances are sent out. We continue to send out acceptances through the end of March. We still have a lot of applicants to go through. So you may still hear something, But again, I don't think it's ever too early to start thinking again about the next cycle, just so that you've got yourself in position to go if you need to do that.
Yeah, everybody, when they start this process, if you haven't started yet, should have a plan B. Just as a realistic outlook on this whole crazy med school application process, you should also be thinking, what will I do if I don't get in this year, as I'm initiating the application in May or June? And that's when plan B might want to start kind of thinking, do I need to start implementing that? In which case, what is that? And I think there's some other I'm sure we'll get to some of these questions. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But it's like Dr. Hayes said, you might want to start thinking about what you want to reapply next year. And we can get into some of that, what strategy or what that looks like. So I'll stop there.
Alrighty, sounds good. No, that is a very, very good point. I was in this position many years ago. So
success. See?
Yes, it works.
It does happen.
Pays off.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Sean, can you please add our next question? What is the significance of a letter of interest or intent? And then how is this weighed by the committee? Christian, do you want to go first?
I kind of mentioned it, just touched on it a little bit a minute ago. It really depends on the school. Some schools, and this is where you're going to have to do a little bit of homework. They may tell you, like after your interview, like, hey, after today, don't call us, we'll call you, kind of thing. Or some schools say, hey, we want to hear updates. We want, like Dr. Hayes said at Rochester, they like to receive, interests and email, just updates, not like stalking the med school, but just, from periodically, if something significant come up, you want to share it, or you want to share your interest. But not every school is like that. So when you say, how is it weighted? At some med schools, everybody does their alternate list or wait list, however you want to use those words, differently. Some schools have a rank order, and doesn't matter if you send an email every day, which you shouldn't do, but let's just say you did. It doesn't matter because you're in a rank order. And so it doesn't matter what you say or do. It's not going to push the needle left or right. But some schools have a little more flexibility. They do tiers, or they're looking at what their composites of their classes look like and who they're losing. And so if they've heard from somebody a few times and there's some interest there, and that student did well in their committee, then having that been staying in touch with them can be helpful. So it's kind of one of those. I think it depends on the school, and so the school should tell you. You should ask the admissions office, do you want to hear from me or not?
That's a good point. I wish I would have thought of that. Dr. Hay, do you have anything to add?
So I completely agree with Christian. Check with the school. I can tell you that we do accept letters of interest and intent. It's important that you put some thought into these. We can tell the ones that are form letters where you've replaced Case Western University with the University of Rochester. We can tell that. So make sure you make them somewhat specific. If you're really interested, you should make sure that interest comes through in the letter, because that will help us say, okay, this is a person who, and we do at the University of Rochester use tiers on our wait list, who is in our top tier and who's very interested. And this is somebody who we might want to offer an earlier spot off the wait list than somebody who hasn't said they've got any interest at all. So it helps a little bit. Definitely do not email every day. There is nothing that will get you placed on the God no list than emailing every single day or calling every day. Sending a letter, letting us know your interest, and any major updates that you have is all that you should do. Please don't stalk us.
I want to add one more thing. In the question, it says interest/intent. There is a difference. It's one thing to say, I have a continued interest in your school, but, I'm kind of playing the field too, which is fine. I get it. If you're at a point where you're on wait list but not accepted, like you feel kind of desperate. We get that. Like you want to go to med school. And so you're trying to keep all your options open. But there is a difference between interest and intent. If you say, letter of intent, like I am intending to come to you should I get an acceptance, that's kind of, I don't want to say binding, but it's kind of an informal agreement. Like, so kind of to Dr. Hayes' point, be intentional when you're writing this. And some of the some of the letters of intent that I read that kind of resonated with us are the ones where somebody like wrote like, I have to tell you, I'm writing one of these. Like, just come out and say like, I'm writing one of these letters, and I'm intending if I get an acceptance, I'm in my car tomorrow, packing up my parents' minivan, and I'm there. Like giving it, like coming out and saying it. Whereas maybe you're saying that to one school, but then you can have letters of interest to other schools saying, hey, I want to let you know, I'm still really interested in your institution, and I would love to be there. And you're not going that extra mile, like going that extra, like to say, I'm intending on coming. So, because it really hacks us off if you write that and then we give an acceptance, and then a couple days you're like, yeah, I'm not coming there. Like, it's like, you only have your word at this point. Like, you're only as good as your word. And so remember that. But I do understand that there are some, people, when you're in this position, like you're trying to grasp at anything to go to med school because you've worked so hard to get here. But just remember that your word is everything.
I really like how you added that. I feel like that theme kind of, sticks with you throughout med school. Be honest and truthful. Because if you're not, it's going to come back to bite you.
Yeah.
And so starting off in the application process is where you should really put that, vision.
That's where professionalism begins. It should have already started. Yep.
And we all talk to each other. So, it doesn't stay silent that you've, said one thing and done something differently later on.
All righty. Thank you both. All right. We're ready for the next question. All right. So when preparing to reapply, what steps should an applicant take? Christian, do you want to go first?
Well, first, you're going to have, I understand the process. Like, you have to kind of lick your wounds for a little bit because it stings when you're down to that last school that you haven't heard from yet. And then it comes in and it's not the news you were hoping for. And now you're left with, I just spent the last year pouring my heart and soul into this, and I don't have that outcome I was hoping for. It stings. So I would say take a little time to lick your wounds and, and step away from it a little bit, clear your mind, and then come back. And a little bit like Dr. Hay said a few minutes ago, like, have to start looking at your application and figure out kind of where and why did you come up? Do you think you came up short? And if you do a little soul searching, and then probably reach out to maybe an advisor that you've been working with at your institution to say, I came up short, can you help me? Like, where is it? And sometimes that is taking a pretty good dose of reality. Like, maybe you thought like, well, I'm just going to put my name in the hat. I know my GPA is not really great, but let's just see what happens. And now it's happened, and it's not the outcome you're hoping for. And you have to kind of take that dose of reality. Like, yeah, my grades weren't as great as I had hoped. I need to maybe go back and retool and find some other ways to kind of boost or show I can handle rigorous academic work. And so that might mean something else. And so, but I'm not a big advocate of like slapping the next application out there 2 months after you've just completed the last one, unless the previous issue was you applied super late, which has happened. So people just don't understand the deadlines and kind of how the process works and the timelines. And they just didn't have any advising, and they applied like super late and it didn't work out. Well, maybe the next time it's like, well, they have everything that looks fantastic, but they just applied really late. Well, maybe applying again sooner might be helpful, but otherwise don't just slap the same thing out there again. Dr. Hay, what do you think?
Completely agree. The biggest mistake I see are people who reapply having done nothing to change their application. That suggests to us that you don't have the ability to reflect and to fix the things that are wrong. And that's something that you have to be able to do as a physician. You have to be able to reflect, look at what went wrong, and decide how you're going to make it right next time. So unless your application, there certainly are people out there who just got really unlucky in the process. There are so many people who apply to medical school. We say no to literally thousands of incredibly qualified applicants. And if you're one of those people and your pre-health advisor says, I don't know what was wrong, everything looked great to me, your metrics are great, you've got lots of community outreach, you've got the research, everything's there, you've got the clinical experience, that's an application that you can realistically reapply with. But otherwise, if there's anything a little bit off, take another year, fix it. And write in any place that they will let you do it. This is what I changed when I reapplied. And that will really help us to see that you've got this ability to reflect and think. And please listen to your pre-health advisors. We do a lot of advising for people who were not successful in our application. And the thing I hear is my pre-health advisor said to do this, but I think because Reddit said that I should do this. And my advice is always listen to your pre-health advisor. They know a lot more than Reddit does about this process.
Yeah, I agree. I want to add one more thing. When Dr. Hay was saying about, oh, nuts. I lost my train of thought there. About reapplying and, because I've seen those applicants too, where you sit down with them and you're like going through, like, I can't figure out why you didn't get in last year. And it was just kind of like, I don't know, it didn't go it just was bad luck. I don't know. And then the next time they reapply, and it's like one of those, like when it rains, it pours. They have a completely different application cycle. And it's just, that's a hard one to advise on. But I would say most of the time there is an anchor in an applicant for them to not get in anywhere. And you have to find that anchor, what's holding them back or down. And then you try to uncover it and analyze it and figure out, is this something that can be remediated or fixed?
I agree with everything that both of you said from my position, because it literally did happen to me. I think that self-reflection piece is key, because only you're you know yourself best. You're the one who can reflect on where you think your weak points are and what you think you can improve on the most. What's going to make you that level up. For me, that was my MCAT score. So it was very tangible right there in front of me, what I needed to do. But I think, just that self-reflection.
There's no shame in reapplying. There's no shame in reapplying. It's not a most ideal thing to do, right, Justine? Like you wasn't like you didn't want to have to do.
definitely did not.
And you're showing perseverance. Yeah, but if you really want this, that's what you have to do. But there's no shame.
Oh no, did we lose Christian for a bit?
I think we did.
Oh no.
My back. Sorry.
Could you
I'm here. I don't know.
The last 25 seconds?
I don't even know what's going on. My son's not even playing Call of Duty or anything. I don't know what the problem is.
We love the internet. Alrighty. I know I was going to say something off of what you were saying. The no shame in reapplying. Yes. Honestly, as I talk to even my classmates or other people I know in med school, it's actually more common than I think pre-med applicants would think. So yeah, kind of removing that stigma.
It's not only very common, it actually is somewhat in your favor. If we're looking through applications and it's somebody who we think, they're from a part of the country, it doesn't often come up to upstate New York. But hey, they're applying to us for the second time. They must be really interested. We'll go ahead and give them that chance the second time around. Whereas the first time around we said, probably won't come here. So we will not say yes.
All right. That makes sense. Okay. We're ready for our next question. All right. When reapplying, is there anything applicants should not do? Ooh, Dr. Hay, you look like you have something to say.
I think we sort of covered it already, but the biggest thing is reapplying with the same application, unless your application was really excellent before and you were just really unlucky. The other thing is reapplying too early. So, you get your final rejection in April and you decide to reapply in May without having changed a whole lot in that time. Let's see, other things you shouldn't do. If the MCAT is the problem, unless something really catastrophic happened on the day of the MCAT, we understand that does. Sometimes people get sick, they have family members who are sick and so on, and they retake it a couple months later and they do much better. That's fine. But if you studied hard, you had a good day in the MCAT, and you didn't do well, then take a much longer time to prepare for it the next time around. And forget about applying the next cycle. Take your time, get your good score in the MCAT, and reapply the cycle after that. And then the other thing is, you've got a very good application. You were just unlucky the first time around. So you keep doing what you're doing, but you decide you're just going to drop all your extracurricular stuff because, hey, it was all good before. And so I'll just, focus on the job that I have at the biotech company. Keep up your community service. Keep that going. And in fact, if you can, add more to it.
That's a good point. Christian, do you have anything else to say?
I would add, don't send in the same essays you sent before. Rewrite your essays. And I understand that personal statement, you feel like, oh, that thing was, that was the hardest thing I ever had to like really write and reflect on. Just don't send the same one back. You can modify it a little bit, because if you think about it, you wrote it a year prior, and you have changed a little bit in that year, and maybe had some other experiences in that year. So add some other things to it a little bit, but just please don't copy and paste the same essays from the last application to the next one. Because if you applied to our school in the last cycle, we can go back and look and see. And sometimes we do, and go back and say, let's look at their old application. Because sometimes we're like, well, what happened? Let's go. What's different? And if we see the same essays, we're like, well, that's lazy. So, but if you didn't apply to that particular med school before, then we can't go back and see the other application. But at that point, it's too high risk to just like copy and paste the same essays from the last time. And who knows, maybe the last time your essays were one of the weak parts of your application, and you just didn't know it. Like your writing wasn't as strong last time, or you were trying to go too quickly to submit too fast or something, and your writing was just, kind of slapped together. But this time you're being more thoughtful and intentional about what you're writing, and say maybe your essays this time around will be more robust and more mature and more well written. So yeah, don't do that.
All right, thank you. Yes, from my perspective, definitely do not send in the same statements or essays. Make sure y'all tweak them even a little bit, because I think it goes back to that self-reflection piece again of knowing your strengths and weaknesses and being able to look at yourself, because it's going to be something you need to do for the following years to come. All righty. What do we have next for a question? All right, so we've come to the end. So what is your biggest takeaway from tonight's session? I will start, and then I will hand it off to each of you. I think I really just touched on it, but self-reflection, I think, is the theme. It's what helped me when I was reapplying, and kind of helped me get to the position I am today. So really just being able to see what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And even if you think that you have, certain strengths and you're gung-ho about them, really take a minute to sit down with yourself and think about them, because they might not be as strong as you think, and your weaknesses might not be as weak as you think they are. So really, really look at yourself and see what you're doing. And it will help so much in the future. All right, I'm going to pass this over to Dr. Hay now about her biggest takeaway.
I think the biggest thing that I took away from tonight was exactly what Justine said, self-reflection, look at your application, think about it. Don't give up hope. Like Christian said, I think that's a really, really important thing as well. We're not at the end of the cycle yet. And we still got a lot of acceptances to send out there. And then finally, something we didn't talk about as much, but if you got a lot of interviews and you didn't get any acceptances, it may not be the application that was the problem. It may be your interviewing and your interviewing technique. And there certainly are people who definitely don't do as well in the interview. So if you think that's the reason, be sure that you do a lot of interview practice. Practice being natural, having a good conversation. Those are things that that will really help you in the process. So consider that too. So that was an extra piece to add on there.
No, that was great. Thank you for adding that, since we did not touch upon that. Christian, what is your biggest takeaway from tonight?
This is a tough topic for us. I think for us to talk about, just because it's not, if you're on wait lists or you think of reapplying, that's a tough position to be in. And I want you to know that admissions people are human, and we get that. And we have to say no to a lot of people, and it's not easy. But to be in this position, we know that this is what you've been working so hard for. And there are things that you can do to try to increase that likelihood potentially that you can get an acceptance this year. But if you're going to reapply, really take a step back and try to put your best foot forward in the next time. And my other takeaway would be, if you're watching this tonight, it shows that you're serious about this, that you've taken some time out of your evening to invest a little bit and to hear some advice from us. And so think about that. Like, if you're doing that, you're doing the right things to take this seriously. And Justine had said, like, there is some people go on studentdoctor.net and Reddits and things like that, and I can find some okay information on there that can be helpful. But there's some stuff on there I'm like, just remember these. I want to ask them, like, what admissions committee is this person on? And chances are they're not on one. So take it with a big grain of salt, or just step away from those type of forums for a little while, because there usually isn't. It creates more anxiety than it does solutions. So come to things like this. Go to like the AAMC's, like virtual fairs or other offerings and career fairs and stuff. Go to the talks if they come to your campus. Go to panels. Like, that's where you're going to get the reassurance and the information that's straight from the source. So one of some of the most authoritative sources out there. So thanks for hosting this, Justine and Sean. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for all of your feedback, and I'm sure so many people are going to benefit from this. I know I definitely would have, if I could have turned to something like this as opposed to Reddit back in the day. Alrighty. Well, just to wrap up, I want to say thank you again to both of our panelists. We really, really appreciate your participation in attendance tonight, and we would not be able to obviously host question and answers like this without you guys. And I also want to give a special thanks to the whole YPI pre-med portal team. There's a bunch more students behind the scenes who, comes together to be able to put events like this together. And I also want to give a special shout out to Dr. Aval Kelly for providing with this streaming platform and really for establishing YPI. And just lastly, to all of our viewers, please share this live stream and any valuable information with your peers and institutions. We really just want to push the factual information and be able to help everybody who wants to become a physician in the future. So please be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And we also have a website where you can find more information and watch previous live streams as well. So thank you to everybody. Have a great night and good luck. And as we end this, there will be a QR code that populates on the screen. And if you guys could just scan that and give us feedback, that would be amazing, whether you are watching live or in the future. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.